All right, March 5th. We are live. New NPC update. Hope everybody is doing well, having a fantastic day. Uh some news obviously has come out, some stuff as it typically always does. The daily axe needs to be ground. And today we have the big talk, right? The steel tariffs, or what was it? Yeah, the 25% tariffs on steel here in Canada. Not good. Not good. As a matter of fact, retaliatory tariffs seem to be what Canada and the US, or sorry, Mexico are going to be doing. Canada imports. Okay, this ad block could stop for 2 seconds here. I could get this article hold up, but it seems to not want to stop. There we go. Canada won't scrap tariffs unless all US levies are lifted, officials say. Canada's imports from the US, vehicles, consumer goods, chemicals, and machinery, lead or lead imports. Cars and truck parts, 81.2 billion. Consumer goods, almost 55.5 billion. A lot of stuff here. A lot of stuff coming in and out. Obviously, Canada's the biggest trading partner with the US. $500 billion, roughly, back and forth from Canada and the US. The tariffs. The tariffs are going to be the talk of probably the next month and a half, or 2 months easily. In fact, that's all everybody's been talking about for the past 3. Just like to point out that these tariffs aren't really anything new. They seem a lot scarier than they really are. Yes, Trump is trying to bring back jobs to the United States, and by doing so, raising the tariffs on other countries makes it more expensive for other businesses to operate outside of the US and makes them want to migrate to the US to work there because they won't have to pay said tariffs on their goods. But it's also the United States. The people, the consumers there, the individuals living there have to pay more on goods. It's kind of it's not good short term, but the long term idea, I guess, is there if you really want to go for that. At the end of the day, Canada and the US are supposed to be the biggest allies. Like, we're supposed to have each other's backs at all times, and it's not looking too good. Not looking very good right now. We have Canadians booing the US anthem. We have the US booing the Canadian anthem. The hockey game that happened a month or ish ago at the beginning of the month or whenever the fuck that happened, the massive fights that broke out in that game, the hatred there, it was all on display. Let's just say there's a lot of division right now when we realistically need to be working together to combat places like Russia, China, India, etc. But, the mainstream media seems to have won again. The mainstream media does what they always do. They push narratives, they lie, they manipulate, and they divide and conquer. And it seems to be working again. The same people that I hear all the time bashing and talking shit about the mainstream media are now jumping on force with the mainstream media, saying this, that, and the fourth about whether it's the United States, Mexico, Canada. They're just parroting the exact same talking points that the legacy media has been for months upon months now. And realistically, yeah, these Trump tariffs aren't good for either side. It is a long-term idea for Trump that he believes is going to work. He thinks it's going to drive businesses into the United States not having to pay the 25 extra percent on top of certain goods. Sure, that's absolutely there. But everybody's blaming him when this guy has been in office for 10 years straight. Business investment per capita. Look at the graph. Look at the graph. Please take a solid look as the United States, no matter who their leader is, continues to have a pretty solid incline upwards. Canada, just fucking sinking. Sinking to the bottom. Look at this. This is terrible. Yeah, the Trump tariffs are bad, but he hasn't been running our country for the past 10 years. Like I said, man, the mainstream media winning again, manipulating a bunch of people into believing the lies. It's just crazy. When you actually pay attention, you can actually put two and two together. We need to be working together. China's sitting back laughing at us right now. China is destroying the economy. They're winning. They're absolutely winning right now. Sitting back, laughing, conquering and dividing slowly. I mean, if you want to bring up the fact maybe Canada's already been corrupt enough by China, right? Who knows? But interesting times lie ahead within the next few months here. I still really, really need to point out the fact that people need to lay off the mainstream media. It's not good for your mental health. It starts making you fucking deranged and crazy. Go outside, breathe some air, take a break. Speaking of deranged individuals, Jagmeet Singh walks back on his promise to force an election as soon as possible. I don't know why this is shocking to anybody. Like, if you want my 1,000 million gajillion % honest opinion, did you really think this guy was gonna call an election? No. He sees the writing on the wall. It's quite obvious what's gonna happen if an early election comes. The NDP, they'll have a fraction of their seats. It'll be shocking to see that they even have... How many seats do they have right now? At least, what, 20 to 30, maybe 40 at the very most? It'd be shocking to see if they have even over half of that if a early election were to be called. This was yesterday. Does Canada need an election now, or should Singh prop up the Liberal until October? I think he's gonna lockstep with Trudeau again. I mean, come on, guys. It's the coalition. It really is. This man's had 3 opportunities to vote out Trudeau. 3 times. He said no. Canada continued to get just decline. It continued to get worse and worse. Across the board. Economics, housing, groceries, whatever. Whatever you want to talk about. We are in a very steep decline right now. This guy had 3 chances to vote out Trudeau, and he backed him all the way. That whole thing where he fake ripped up the coalition agreement, that was a bunch of BS, wasn't it?
You want to vote down the government at your earliest opportunity. Do you still stand by that statement, and do you think now is the time for an election?
Now is the time to put workers first. We're literally in a trade war. And I can't imagine any opposition leader that wouldn't want to support a package to help workers impacted by this. We did that during the pandemic. We came together. We need to have that same approach now. So my answer to that is we need support our workers first, put in place working, an election afterwards.
And what's the plan for, I mean, how long would you see something like that? This tariff war?
You want...
There, you heard it. He wants a package for workers before an election. Like I said, the NDP, they are scrambling. They will be a fraction of themselves once an election hits, whether it's in October or if it comes earlier than that. I don't know why anybody really believes a word this man says to begin with. You can just watch any of the House of Commons question periods, and every time he opens his mouth, it's an absolute joke. It just really is. You can see the lies and manipulation in real time whenever this man speaks. You can fact check him in real time. It's that easy. It just really is. If you want to help Canadians, if you truly cared for Canadians, you would just get out of the way, Jagmeet, because you're not doing anybody any favors by continuing to play these theatrics. Your time is up. Hasta la vista. This happened yesterday, and I specifically want to point out the fact of how the Democrats acted during this. A 13-year-old DJ Daniel was diagnosed with brain cancer, and doctors only gave him 5 months to live. This was more than 6 years ago. 6 years ago. He always dreamed of becoming a police officer. During his primetime speech before Congress, President Trump made DJ's dream come true by making him not just a police officer, but an official agent of the United States Secret Service. This kid went through numerous brain surgeries, and survived one of the harshest cancers known of all time. Brain cancer, it's very rough. The chances of surviving that, anyway, not very good. But during his speech before Congress, now I specifically want to point out, keep an eye on the Democrats.
Joining us in the gallery tonight is a young man who truly loves our police. His name is DJ Daniel. He is 13 years old, and he has always dreamed of becoming a police officer. But in 2018, DJ was diagnosed with brain cancer. The doctors gave him 5 months at most to live. That was more than 6 years ago.
Take a look at that. That scene right there. You have the entire Republican side standing ovation clapping. The Democrats are sitting. They don't even have the respect, the decency to stand up and say, you know what, kid, congratulations on beating one of the hardest forms of cancer to beat. They didn't even have that in them. That just shows the kind of people they are. If we skip ahead
to make his dream come true, and DJ has been sworn in as an honorary law enforcement officer actually a number of times. The police love him, the police departments love him. And tonight, DJ, we're going to do you the biggest honor of them all. I am asking our new Secret Service Director, Sean Curran, to officially make you an agent of the United States Secret Service.
Look at that kid's face. That was literally everything. That is everything right there. So everybody standing O. Super proud father, by the way. That's awesome to see. He literally gets his own badge and everything. And I don't know what else to say, man. This could bring a tear to a grown man's eye. Who's throwing onions around the room? I don't know. But if we take a look, standing ovation from the Republicans, we take a look back here as it slowly zooms out, the entire Democratic side not even standing for this kid, surviving brain cancer. Absolutely insane. They have no respect for something even on that level. It just shows the kind of people they truly are. All right, moving on to the next piece of news we have here. Pierre Poilievre on the tariff threat. Obviously, like I said, the big talk of the next fucking God knows how long. He did a stream or a speech a few days ago, and he did one late yesterday. So we are going to be watching both of these in their entirety. I want to hear what he has to say. He's going to give a lot of insight on what he is going to do and what he wants to do. in the future, whether it's working with Trump or firing back with our own tariffs, whatever the case is, his plan's got to be better than Trudeau's. I mean, it just simply comes down to it. I can pull up that capita statement again if you want me to, as our graph slowly reaches the bottom as the US slowly climbs up. Anyway, let's get right into this.
Thank you very much, everyone, for being here today. I'm in politics to bring home Canada's promise, a very simple promise. You work hard, you get a great life, in a beautiful house, on a safe street, protected by a solid border and brave troops under a proud flag. That promise has been broken now for several years after the Carney-Trudeau Liberals doubled housing costs, doubled the national debt, doubled food bank lineups, doubled gun crime, pushed $500 billion of investment out of Canada to the U.S. and gave us the worst economic growth in the G7. Now they're seeking a fourth term in office. But more immediately, on Tuesday, we're faced with yet another possible threat of tariffs. Mr. Trump, the President of the United States, has threatened that tariffs will kick in on Tuesday. We don't know if he's going to pull back again, but if the tariffs do happen, we must retaliate, and we must use the revenues mostly, almost exclusively, to cut taxes for Canadian workers and businesses to bolster our economy against those tariffs. Regardless of what the President does, though, we can't rely on him, and we can't rely on the Americans anymore. We've learned our lesson from 10 years of helplessness. We need to take back control of our economy and bring home a strong, self-reliant, and sovereign nation. Simply put, we need to bring it home. We must bring home our jobs, our resources, our production, our supply chains. We must not only harvest our resources, but we must build LNG plants and ports that can get those resources to overseas markets. That means tax cuts and greenlighting massive resource projects to bring home our jobs, businesses, and money, and to become less dependent on the Americans. It means rejecting the radical, keep-it-in-the-ground environmental agenda that Mark Carney has advised on Justin Trudeau over the last 5 years. That is why, over a month ago, I called on the government to immediately, 1, repeal the Liberal No New Pipelines Law C-69, a law that has blocked mines, pipelines, power dams, LNG plants that would make us more independent from the United States. 2, immediately convene premiers to remove, not talk about removing, but remove exemptions in the Canadian Free Trade Deal so Canadians can trade between provinces. 3, pass a bring-it-home tax cut on work, investment, home building, energy, and making stuff in Canada. 4, immediately remove red tape and taxes to boost home building. Wouldn't it be a wonderful way to help our beleaguered lumber business and our loggers to start building some homes? If we were to axe the federal sales tax and get a deal with provinces and municipalities to take their taxes off, we could build hundreds of thousands of extra homes, creating jobs for our tradespeople and boosting demand for our domestic lumber that President Trump is threatening and that President Biden already tariffed. But despite asking for all of these things over a month ago, nothing has happened. The Liberals have done precisely nothing in the last month to make us less reliant on the Americans. They shut Parliament so that we were not even able to pass any laws, or more importantly, repeal the devastating laws and taxes that they had originally put in place. Instead, Liberals have spent the last 3 months raising money for Mark Carney and fighting for power within their own party. So today, as we speak, the No New Pipelines Law, C-69, is still in place. All Liberal tax increases are still in place. Trade barriers within the country are still in place. The federal sales tax is still in place on new homes. The Carney-Trudeau Liberal policies that have doubled housing costs, doubled food bank use, doubled the debt, gave us the worst growth in the G7 and pushed $500 billion out of our country to the United States, all still in place. Speaking of pushing money out of Canada, we know that is exactly what Mark Carney did when he backed down to Donald Trump. On October 26, 2024, Donald Trump threatened tariffs against Canada to take our jobs. 6 days later, Mark Carney announced that Brookfield headquarters would move from Canada to Trump's hometown of New York City, giving Canadian jobs to Americans. And we all know, no matter what the corporate bigwigs tell you, that when the headquarters goes, the jobs and the money will follow soon after. Mark Carney did exactly what Trump wanted. He backed down and sold out our country when Canada was under attack. He did it while he was acting as Justin Trudeau's economic advisor. When asked why he moved the headquarters out of Canada, he said he had nothing to do with it, that the decision was made after he left the company in January. Yet documents show that the decision was made in October of last year at a meeting that he chaired, where the decision was unanimous, meaning he agreed with it. And then he recommended it in writing to his shareholders. Confronted about his falsehood, he now says he should have been more precise. But here's the thing. He was very precise. He said, and I quote, "The decision, the formal decision of the board, happened after I ceased to be on the board." Again, the decision, the formal decision of the board, happened after I ceased to be on the board. That is a very precise statement, precisely the opposite of the truth. The formal decision happened in October, 3 months before Mark Carney left, and he chaired the meeting. Now, he told this to all of you, the media here today. Let's digest that for a second. He sat at that mahogany table, grasping the gavel, and recorded the decision, which he agreed with, to move the headquarters to New York from Canada. And then just the other night, when you asked him about it, he looked all of you in the eye, and he said the board made the decision after he left the company, and he had nothing to do with it. Are you ever going to believe anything he tells you again? Don't you think he should come before you and explain himself? Mark Carney has to come before Canadians and explain. He needs to explain why he lied and why he sold out our country, why he failed to put Canada first when we were under attack. He needs to apologize to Canadians, not only for lying, but for putting his personal profits ahead of our country. Mark Carney put himself first instead of putting Canada first. We need action to protect our country and its people, to take back control of our economic future, and to protect Canadians from greedy corporate executives who would ship our jobs abroad, and to bring home the promise of Canada. We have a common sense plan to do it. Conservatives will axe taxes, we will build homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime. We will cut bureaucracy, consultants, corporate welfare, and foreign aid to bring down liberal deficits, taxes, and inflation. We will repeal anti-development laws like C-69 and rapidly greenlight mines, pipelines, factories, LNG plants, and other highly profitable projects. We will lower taxes on work, energy, investment, home building, and making stuff in Canada. We'll take the GST off new homes to build thousands of new places for young people to live. We will axe the carbon tax for real, for everyone, and forever. We will reject plans by Carney to bring that tax back. We will simplify our tax code so that our businesses spend more time hiring workers and serving customers and less time blocking resource projects and making us hopelessly dependent on the Americans. Or are you ready for real common sense change? To axe taxes, greenlight big projects, secure our borders and our military, and put Canada first. And in the end, we will bring home the promise of this country where hard work gets you a great life, that buys you a beautiful home on a safe street protected by solid borders and brave soldiers under a proud flag. Canada, let's bring it home.
Thank you. We'll now take questions from the floor.
All right, questions from reporters. Let's see if it gets interesting or not. It typically does.
Good morning, Mr. Poilievre. Christy Kirkup with the Globe and Mail. What is your reaction to the exchange in the Oval Office between Donald Trump and Vladimir Zelensky, both in English and in French, please?
We support Ukraine in its right to defend itself and to be independent. The aggressor in this conflict is Russia. Russia carried out an unprovoked invasion of Ukraine, an invasion that it has been mercilessly prosecuting for the last 3 years, and Ukraine has been the victim of that invasion. All democracies need to stand with Ukrainians and their right to defend themselves and reclaim their territory. And any suggestion to the contrary is wrong. I would further add that Canada could have helped defund Putin. We could have approved the Energy East pipeline, which would have sent 1 million barrels of Western Canadian oil to the Atlantic, where it could have been shipped to Europe. We could have approved LNG projects in Quebec and Atlantic Canada, as the Germans, the Ukrainians, the Greeks, and others pleaded with us to do. All of that would have broken dependence on Putin. But Justin Trudeau said there was no business case. He killed the Energy East pipeline, and Mark Carney supported him in killing all those projects. Bill C-69 makes it impossible to send our resources out of North America. So what we need to do is reverse this radical anti-Canadian energy agenda that Carney Trudeau have imposed and rapidly approve projects so that we can sell Canadian energy to displace Russia and turn dollars for dictators into paychecks for our people.
En français.
Or we could just find a way to end the supposedly never-ending war, which both sides have agreed it's not going to end anytime soon, and they even said that as soon as the quote-unquote invasion happened. So how about we work on that instead? How about we work on ending the unnecessary slaughtering of people on both sides and handing billions upon billions of our tax dollars over to, like I said, a war that's not going to end anytime soon? That's such a problem. Not a single word came out of his mouth saying, we're looking forward to trying to end this. We're just going to try and harm Putin and make him even more pissed off so that he comes at us even harder. Come on, man. You gotta work out a deal here to end the merciless slaughtering of people on both sides. The unnecessary war that has gone on for fucking years. How many years now? 3, almost 4? Come on, get to the table, talk with this man. Have them actually make a deal and end the war. Seems like Trump is the only one who actually has the balls to do so.
L'Ukraine cruelle. L'Ukraine et leur terrain ont agression à l'avance et Paris peut devant ses produits 69 et gens de ramener.
Morning, Colton Perel, CTV. If you can also respond in French and English, that'd be appreciated. Our allies are calling for a coalition of the willing to guarantee the security of Ukraine. You talked about pipelines there, but what tangible military supports would your government provide Ukraine, and does it include Canadian troops on the ground?
Thank you for your question. I haven't seen any such proposal. What I can tell you is that we've already supported, for example, giving missiles. We got a thank you letter from the Ukrainian military for the missiles that James Bazan, my shadow minister of defense, identified, and then the government eventually accepted his suggestion to donate them. We also think that that the best way to provide support is by selling Canadian energy, breaking the Russian monopoly that finances the war. Putin has total dominance on the European energy market because Canada, under Justin Trudeau and the Liberals, has said no. You know, I wonder sometimes, if we had 1 million barrels of Western Canadian oil going to Europe right now, or 3 years ago, if we had thousands of cubic feet every day of natural gas going to Europe from Canada, would Putin have been able to fund a 3-year-long war? I doubt it. But Justin Trudeau and Mark Carney said there was no business case for exporting LNG and oil. Both of them have opposed pipelines. They're on the record. Don't be fooled. The last-minute promises they make before elections are not even worth the promises, not even worth the paper they're written on. Only the Conservatives will repeal the Liberal anti-development law and rapidly export Canadian oil and gas and other materials to break dependence on dirty dictators and bring home powerful paychecks for our people.
En français.
Thank you. Merci beaucoup. Suggérer je me demande des fois finance parce que nos polices carney qui bloque les pleins de jours mérite.
Question.
Bonjour, Anne-Louise Michel pour Radio-Canada, de la même façon en anglais et en français, s'il vous plaît. On est à 48 heures de l'instauration de tarifs douaniers ou de possibles tarifs douaniers. Si vous étiez Premier ministre, comment vous vous assuriez qu'on n'aille pas à une 6e crise du bois d'œuvre au Canada?
Mais on a déjà une crise de bois d'œuvre au Canada. Même avant Donald Trump, Joe Biden a doublé les tarifs sur le bois d'œuvre. Oublions pas que Stephen Harper a réussi à enlever les tarifs sur le bois d'œuvre. Là, quand Justin Trudeau est arrivé au pouvoir, ces tarifs ont été réinstaurés. Et dans ce cas, ce n'est pas juste Donald Trump. Obama, Trump et Biden ont tous gardé les tarifs douaniers sur le bois d'œuvre canadien. Et en fait, M. Biden les a doublés. Les libéraux ont échoué totalement de défendre et ont amené sur le règlement pour le bois d'œuvre canadien. It's not these tariffs to avoid or address a future softwood lumber crisis. It's not a future crisis. It's a present and past crisis. These tariffs have now been in place now for 9 years. After Stephen Harper succeeded within 80 days of becoming Prime Minister in convincing George W. Bush to eliminate the softwood lumber tariffs and reimburse $4 billion of wrongfully collected tariffs, the tariffs went right back in under Trudeau. And for 9 years, the Liberals have failed to have them lifted. Not only that, but Joe Biden doubled the softwood tariffs on Canada. All of this before Trump. So the Liberals then went on to sign a trade agreement with Trump that allowed the tariffs to stay in place. That's one of the reasons we're in such a terrible mess. I will fight for an end to these softwood tariffs, and I would activate American home builders and young families looking to buy homes and say to them, look, you're paying more because of this tariff tax on building materials. So if you want more affordable homes, call your congressman and your senator and tell them to get the president to drop these ridiculous tariffs. Finally, why not build some homes in Canada? There's nothing Donald Trump can do to stop us from building homes in Canada. That is a homegrown business, pun intended. So we take the GST off new homes. We incentivize municipalities and provinces to take their taxes off. Let's build hundreds of thousands of new affordable homes for our young families using Canadian softwood lumber.
Thank you. Next question.
Good morning. Laura Osmond with The Logic. If you could please respond in English and in French. In your Canada First speech at your rally, you spoke about leveraging Canadian energy and our cold climate to power AI data centers in the context of the tariff threat. How specifically would you leverage those Canadian advantages in the context of a trade dispute with the United States?
Well, the Americans need data, and data takes energy. These data centers are they're energy-eating beasts. As I said in my speech, an inquiry to an AI chatbot takes 10 times as much electricity as a Google search. Meta, Microsoft, Google, and other tech giants are all buying or building nuclear power stations so that they can power their data centers. The Americans cannot keep up with their own demand. We, on the other hand, have a surplus of electricity, a surplus that we could massively expand if we were to repeal the anti-development laws. We could build natural gas power plants in Alberta. We could get the politics out of the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission to speed up safe construction of both CANDU reactors and small modular reactors. We could produce even more hydroelectricity, and we could be paid hundreds of billions of dollars for that energy to power data centers. And let's make this the place to build them. If we have fast permits and clear rules, then the data centers can be built here, and that would give us more power. Imagine if the new gold, if the gold of the coming century is data, and we have it on our soil, then we're the ones with the control. That's what I mean when I say, let's bring it home.
En français.
On a d'électricité ou même des Canada. C'est ça le ramener.
In French. Mr. Poilievre, we are likely weeks away from an election call, and most polls show the once massive conservative lead has withered.
We are likely weeks away from an election call. My God, I can only hope so.
And the party now appears to be in a tie with the Liberals. This has come despite a near steady barrage of conservative attacks against Liberal frontrunner, presumptive Liberal frontrunner Mark Carney, and also in the context of this Trump tariff threat, where Donald Trump has taken some constant shots at Canadian political leaders, including recently lashing out at you. Why do you think voters have appeared to be turning away from your party at this time?
Well, on Mr. Trump's comments, it is the president says that I am not MAGA, and that's true. I'm Canada first. Canada will never be the 51st state. I will always put my country ahead of all others. Now, I have no doubt that the president would love to have Mark Carney as Canada's prime minister. Why wouldn't he? Mark Carney did exactly what Mr. Trump asked for. He moved his company headquarters to Trump's hometown 6 days after the president threatened tariffs on our country. Carney supported carbon taxes on Canada, supported blocking pipelines in Canada while he invested in American coal. Carney's policies, which Trudeau implemented, pushed $500 billion investment dollars out of Canada to the U.S., exactly as Trump wanted. So Trump would love to have a weak prime minister like Mark Carney, who will sell out our country and drive jobs and money abroad. He probably doesn't want a strong leader like me, who will axe taxes, greenlight big projects, make this the best place in the world to do business, and bring home the hundreds of billions of dollars of investment that Carney-Trudeau Liberals have driven south.
En français.
Merci beaucoup. Trump ne suis pas ministre que Carney dans le supporté le donnez-les.
En français.
I just did it in French, yeah.
Thank you. This will be the final question.
I know my French isn't perfect, but
Mr. Poilievre, we're seeing the Liberals invoke Donald Trump's name in attacks made against you, both in Christopher Freeland's interview with Bill Maher and some new political ads over the weekend. How helpful do you think this is for Canada when we're supposed to be deep in talks with the Trump administration over the tariff threats?
I think the Liberals are trying to cover up the fact that they've been very good for President Trump. They've given Trump everything he's wanted, despite the song and dance the Liberals put on. Look at the facts. Under 10 years of this Liberal government, they have pushed a net $500 billion of investment out of Canada into the U.S. They blocked pipelines to the Atlantic and the Pacific, which forces us to give almost all our oil to the Americans. They said that LNG plants did not have a business case, so now we have to give 100% of our LNG exports to the Americans for $4 when we could be selling it in Europe for $14. They raised taxes on investment and business, which has forced company after company to leave the country. And don't take my word for it. Mark Carney says that America is a better place for businesses to locate than Canada. The environment minister said the other day that the resource minister said the other day that Mark Carney was making a good shareholder decision by moving his company out of Canada. That is the message that Liberals give Canadian business. Go south to the U.S. That's precisely what Donald Trump wants to hear. I think President Trump will be popping champagne when he finds out that Mark Carney is leading the Liberal Party, because he knows that Carney will sell out Canada again. By contrast, I will put Canada first. We will cut the taxes, speed up the projects, bring home production to our country. We will be a self-reliant, strong, and sovereign nation that restores Canada's promise.
Thank you. That concludes today's press conference.
Thank you very much.
Carney will take the position, and Freeland will return as finance minister. All right. We have roughly about 15 minutes here of more Pierre Poilievre. This came out late yesterday. This is the most recent development from Parliament itself late yesterday. Let's take a listen. I'm sure there will be some reporters in here as well.
At 12:01 a.m., President Trump stabbed America's best friend in the back. My message to the President is this: Canada will fight back. We will defend our people and our economy, and we will put Canada first. There is no doubt that our economy will suffer, but so will yours, President Trump. In fact, you're already paying the price, with trillions of dollars erased in stock market value over the last month of these threats. Already, Americans are paying higher gas prices, as at midnight, a new American gas tax kicked in on U.S. working-class taxpayers and motorists. Your workers will soon start losing jobs they had upgrading Canadian raw materials, which, by the way, you were getting at an incredible and ridiculous bargain. And your businesses will be selling fewer products to your closest neighbor. And that's only the beginning. While Canadians are slow to anger and quick to forgive, once provoked, we fight back. And we will fight back. Now, I'd like to speak to the millions of Canadians who are anxious today after learning that President Trump has attacked our economy, to the auto workers, the forestry workers, the steel and aluminum workers, the mining and energy workers, the truckers, the farmers, to all of you who get out of bed before the sun rises and do the labor of the nation. You are afraid right now, and I understand. I want you to know that I will fight for you. I will fight for your job. I will fight for your family. I will fight for your chance at owning and paying off a home, and I will fight for your retirement. And I will fight to put Canada first. Before these tariffs came in this morning, you must have been asking yourself, how could things get any worse? Before these tariffs, you were already suffering. You wondered how you'd pay the rent, or eventually dream of buying a home after housing costs had doubled over the last decade, rising faster than in any other G7 country. You've downgraded your diet, as food prices have risen 37% faster in Canada than in the United States over the last 5 years. You might be one of the 2 million people, a record-breaking number, lined up at food banks, a number that has more than doubled before these tariffs applied. You've likely noticed that your paycheck is not keeping up with the record inflation, as Canada's GDP has grown less and lower than any other G7 country over the last decade. You might have noticed that your company has already been moving jobs to the United States, as greedy and self-serving CEOs put their share prices ahead of your job, and $500 billion net has left from Canada to Trump's America under the current Liberal government. And now this. But I'm here with a message of hope. We will overcome this attack on our economy, and I have a plan to do it. First, we must retaliate, targeting American goods in the following order. A, goods that we can make ourselves. B, goods we don't need. And C, goods we can get from elsewhere. Second, counter tariffs must not be a cash cow for the government. Almost every penny of the tariffs collected should go to tax cuts, with a small sum set aside for targeted relief to workers hardest hit by the trade war. None of the money should go to new government spending and programs. We must not allow politicians to dishonestly use this crisis to once again launch a debt-fueled, money-printing spending spree that will drive up inflation and further destroy the working class and hit the poorest people the hardest. Third, we must immediately pass a bring-it-home tax cut on work investment, energy, and home building. The idea is to neutralize the cost of the tariffs with lower taxes and incentivize massive new investment in building stuff here in this country. The obvious place to start is to get rid of the Liberal carbon tax, then axe the sales tax on new homes. We need to reverse the Liberal capital gains tax hike and slash income tax so that hard work pays off and you bring home more of each dollar you earn. Fourth, we must immediately repeal the Liberal No New Pipelines Law, C-69, a law that not only blocks all pipelines but stops mines, refineries, export plants, and all kinds of other energy infrastructure and makes us hopelessly reliant on one customer, the Americans, a customer we cannot count on anymore. We must greenlight LNG plants that Liberals say there is no business case for, so that we can no longer have to sell our 100% of our LNG, our gas exports to the Americans. We can sell it to Asia and Europe and help break the European dependence on Putin, turning dollars for dictators into paychecks for our people. 5, you know what industry Donald Trump does not control in Canada? Home building. It is a homegrown industry. We must get rid of all taxes and red tape to unleash the biggest home building boom this country has ever seen, bigger than the post-war boom when our heroes were coming back from that war. We need to build homes faster than ever, and that means removing the bureaucracy, the red tape, the taxes, and the gatekeepers, and I will make it happen. That will also boost the demand for softwood lumber. The loggers are suffering after Biden hit them with tariffs already. And 6, let's get our provinces together to knock down trade barriers so that we can lower prices and boost wages for our people. 7, we must secure our borders and rebuild our military to assert our sovereignty and strength in the world. All these things, axing taxes, building homes, unleashing construction of our resources, fixing the budget, stopping crime, all of these things were conservative fixations before the tariffs. Now they are even more necessary. But none of these things have happened in the last 100 days since Trump first launched his tariff threats. Look behind me. Parliament has been closed. Liberals shut it down to focus on their political battles. So the job-killing carbon tax is still in place. The sales tax is still in place on new homes. The No New Pipelines Law still in place. The massive inflationary deficits still in place. Not one law has been changed. Not one tax has been cut. Not one action has been taken to free us from the grip of Trump and the U.S. We need change, and we will get change. It will be tough. Building Canada was tough, and so are Canadians. We will bring home the country we know and love and restore its promise. Canada will be self-reliant, sovereign, and stand on its own 2 feet. We will build on the great legacy and vision of John A. Macdonald of uniting our country east to west. We'll reward work, unleash entrepreneurs, harvest resources, make our own goods, trade with each other, build homes for our youth, rebuild our borders and military, honor our history, and raise our flag. What binds us together is the Canadian promise that anyone from anywhere can achieve anything, that hard work gets you a great life in a beautiful house on a safe street, protected by solid borders and brave troops under a proud flag. To preserve that flag and its promise, we must work together, fight together, and win together. That is what it means to put Canada first, because Canada is worth fighting for our people, for our land, for our home, for our country. Let's bring it home.
Do you agree with the tariffs? What do you think Donald Trump wants?
Holy shit, they act like a bunch of rabid animals as soon as he's done speaking.
Tariffs. What do you think Donald Trump wants by imposing these
Est-ce qu'on devrait mettre en place des programmes d'aide pour aider les Canadiens?
On doit être signe que le père créé pendant l'assurance et d'autres par des terres. C'est notre économie.
Entrer en vigueur aujourd'hui, tant puis
Les libéraux n'ont pas assez fait poison. Justifier des migrants, c'est pas une excuse. Oui, on doit s'attendre. Reçoivent morts en place sans drone. On doit.
How would you support Canadian business and workers?
Sorry, I didn't get a chance to say that in English. The question was, have the Liberals done enough on fentanyl, and is that a good justification for Trump's tariffs, and the answer to both questions is no and no. No, the Liberals have not done enough on fentanyl, but not because they should have been doing it for Trump. They should have been doing it for Canadians. We've lost 50,000 people to fentanyl. That's more than died in the Second World War. And that is because of the weak borders, the soft laws, and the radical liberalization of drugs that the Liberals experimented with and that they want to continue on with. I would ban the drugs, add 2,000 CBSA border guards, more surveillance towers, scanners, and drones to interrupt the illegal entry of fentanyl into our country. And I would treat fentanyl dealers for what they are. They are mass murderers, and they will get life sentences when I'm Prime Minister. But let's be clear, that is not a justification for tariffs. We have guns, drugs, and illegal migrants coming from the United States to Canada. We have never tariffed the Americans for that. If the president wants to fight fentanyl, I agree with him, but I would do it not for President Trump. I would do it for Canadians so that not one more mother gets the knock on the door from a police officer telling her that her son has died in a back alley.
Do you believe that this is about annexing Canada?
Tariff relief support package, whatever you want to call it, require reopening the House and passing legislation. Is this something you're open to doing, even if it requires supporting the Liberals on confidence
matters? We should have had the House open for the last 2 months. Well, we haven't. That's a question for the Liberals. They're the ones that shut down Parliament, and that's why we haven't had those debates.
The last question.
Le président américain a dit que vous êtes. He's not a MAGA guy. I don't like what he says about me. Comment, dans ce contexte, vous pensez établir une relation?
What the hell? Why did he?
Le Canada d'abord. Je travaille pas pour. Je suis nos emplois, les politiciens. In English. Well, I'll answer.
Is that what the end game here for Donald Trump?
Let me be clear. I'm going to combine the two questions. The gentleman asked in French about President Trump's comments on me. The president says that he doesn't like me. He doesn't think that I'm a MAGA guy. I am not. It is true that I am Canada first. I am only for Canada. I'm fighting for the interests of this people and this country. And if that upsets foreign leaders, including the American president, I'm fine with that, because I have one job to do, and it's to fight for this country. And let me be also clear. We will never be the 51st state. We will be self-reliant, sovereign, and stand on our own feet. We will be an independent and a sovereign country, and I will always stand up for our flag and our people.
Thank you. All right, there you have it, guys. We have, right now, as we were watching that, the White House has press briefings. The White House has press briefings going on right now, and I can only assume they're going to talk about the tariffs. I was just watching CTV a couple minutes ago, and apparently Trudeau was on the phone with Trump.
95-year-old mother after being detained in Russia. To Peyton McNabb, whose heart-wrenching story motivated President Trump to end men in women's sports. And to Allison and Lauren Phillips, the mother and daughter and sister of Laken Riley, who President Trump honored by signing the Laken Riley Act to ensure her name will live on forever. In other amazing and surprise moments, President Trump honored the life of Jocelyn Nungare, who was brutally murdered by illegal alien gang members. He ensured Jocelyn will never be forgotten by renaming a national wildlife refuge in her home state of Texas to honor her life. And in one of the greatest surprise moments of the night, DJ Daniel, an incredible 13-year-old boy who is beating brain cancer, saw his dreams fulfilled by President Trump when he was made an honorary Secret Service agent. And finally, after nearly 4 years, President Trump delivered justice for the families of the 13 American heroes who were killed at Abbey Gate in the Biden-botched Afghanistan withdrawal, which was one of the worst humiliations in the history of our country. President Trump announced that we have detained Mohammed Sharifullah, the monster who was responsible for that horrific attack, and he was delivered to Dulles Airfield earlier this morning. On his first day in office, President Trump's national security team across the federal government prioritized intelligence gathering to locate this evil individual. President Trump's team shared intelligence with regional partners such as Pakistan, who helped identify this monster in the borderland area late last month. Mohammed confessed to his crimes related to Abbeygate and other attacks in Russia and Iran as well to the Pakistanis. And U.S. law enforcement officers traveled to Pakistan over the weekend, where he again confessed his crimes to the FBI. As President Trump said last night, this killer will now face the swift sword of American justice for these atrocities right here on United States soil. Joe Biden was responsible for this botched withdrawal, and he had 3 years to find this evil terrorist, and he didn't even try to get the job done. But President Trump campaigned on behalf of and grew very close to the Gold Star families. He promised them accountability, and last night, he kept his promise. He spoke to those Gold Star families yesterday, ahead of his speech, in an incredibly heartwarming call to share this incredible news. And as President Trump asked in his speech last night, how could anyone possibly be opposed to any of this action that he is taking? Well, apparently, the modern-day Democrat Party could. The behavior of Democrats last night was completely disgraceful and demonstrated how severely out of touch they are with the American public. It was the most shameful moment in the history of presidential addresses in that beautiful chamber. In what was supposed to be a unifying moment for our country, Democrat members of Congress instead screamed at the President of the United States, who was just overwhelmingly reelected by their constituents, walked out of the chamber, and worst of all, they disrespected the American people. Democrats didn't stand to keep men out of women's sports. They couldn't even clap for a girl who got her head smashed in by a man on a volleyball court. Democrats didn't stand for an innocent and beautiful child who is surviving brain cancer. They opposed eliminating taxes on tips and Social Security. They didn't stand in favor of cutting taxes for hardworking Americans. They couldn't even clap for 2 mothers whose daughters were killed by illegal aliens. One of the only things that could get Democrats off their feet last night was cheering for Ukraine, not for America. Last night was a very clarifying moment for our country. The Democrats exposed themselves as the party of insanity and hate, the party that wants to put America last. They've allowed their Trump derangement syndrome to stop them from celebrating America and our people, and we will not allow them to forget that. And it's not just the Democrat Party. The mainstream media still doesn't get it. Last night, MSNBC's Nicole Wallace disgustingly looped in a 13-year-old boy with brain cancer into an attack on the president over January 6th. And CNN's first chyron out of the speech called it divisive. President Trump wasn't divisive. The Democrats were. And CNN was proven wrong by their own viewers, 69% of whom, in a post-speech poll, said they had a positive reaction to the president's speech. It's sad and frankly pathetic that Democrats and liberals in the legacy media continue to allow their hatred for the president to override their love for our country.
Yeah, it was wild. The Democrats, out of all of the things that happened yesterday, Trump announced that the people who were terribly slaughtered by the illegal immigrants, which were gang members, he renamed them after these different places. The whole thing with the kid who survived cancer, brain cancer, like all of that stuff that he did yesterday is enough to bring a tear to your eye. Like, somebody was throwing onions around yesterday. I watched that shit live and I straight up was tearing up at one point. That was some incredible stuff there. To see the respect for the people that put you into that position be shown on that level is just not something you see very often. To rename places after the victims of these horrific crimes, it's just it's a legacy for that family that will live on forever, right? Obviously, the crime is terrible, but to have that in memory as well, that you can go to this place that is named after your kid, that's pretty awesome stuff he did there for those families. And not once. There were a few Democrats that I think did stand and clap, but a vast majority of them, at least 80%, 90%, sat down, didn't clap, didn't show the respect to the family members, the kid who survived brain cancer and was told he had 5 months to live. Didn't even give him a standing ovation. Not even like, oh, congratulations, you survived one of the most brutal cancers out there. Congratulations on that. Not even that. They literally just were sitting down the whole time. These people are disgusting, and they showed themselves their true intentions and what they actually think was on display last night for 2 whole hours. For 2 whole hours.
But nevertheless, the president will continue to unify this nation through policies that are grounded in common sense and that uplift all Americans. We have an individual in our new media seat today, Mary Margaret Olahan, who is the Daily Wire's first ever White House correspondent. Congratulations, Mary Margaret. The Daily Wire was founded by conservative and home
last night and the second on Maine. You talked about behavior from Democrat lawmakers, a lot of disruptions, and I just wanted to kind of go back to that. We saw Democrat lawmakers not stand for Laken Riley, for Peyton McNabb, for the son of a slain police officer and 13-year-old cancer survivor. What are the optics of that nationally, just in terms of not just the people who were in the room last night, but across the nation? And also, was President Trump expecting this type of behavior when he was crafting his speech?
So I gave a quote to one of the media outlets in this room yesterday that Democrats behaving like children would be the least surprising thing of the night. And unfortunately, that quote did turn out to be true. I think the president and everyone, frankly, was surprised by the Democrats refusing to stand for not the president's policies, because frankly, we expected that, but for the everyday Americans who President Trump was shining a light on their story.
Exactly. That right there. It wasn't the fact that they were going to stand there and clap in suit with what he says in terms of his policies and what he wants to enact. But it's the support of the American people. It's the respect, showing and giving back. That's what it truly is.
Mark Fogel, for instance, an American school teacher who was detained by the Russians. President Trump freed him. If Joe Biden had done that, they all would have been on their feet, but because of what came from President Trump, they weren't. So we think it's very sad, but we're very proud of the president today, and the American people are the people that this president cares about most, and the reviews are in, and everybody loved his speech.
Thank you. And then on Maine, we know that the governor of Maine has really pushed back against the president's executive order saying that boys should not be in girls' sports. I spoke with a lawmaker from Maine this morning who told me she'd been censured by state lawmakers for calling a man and speaking up on this. What is the next move for the White House in this battle to protect the integrity of women's sports?
Yeah, well, the Department of Education has sued the state of Maine. As you know, there's ongoing litigation. The president has made a commitment to ensure that states are being held accountable if they continue to allow men in women's sports, which he believes is an egregious violation of taxpayer dollars. And so that fight continues, and the president won't back down. Again, this is a common sense policy. 80% of the American people, including more than 60% of Democrats, do not want men in women's sports. So the president will stand by this commitment. Thank you. Gabe, good to see you in here.
Good.
Gabe, good to see you in here.
Good to see you, Caroline. A couple questions. One, can you confirm that the president held talks with the big 3 automakers today, speaking about potentially delaying tariffs?
I can confirm, and I'm glad that you asked, because the president sent me out here with a statement directly from him on this. I saw it was reported earlier today by Bloomberg News, and he wanted me to share this with all of you. We spoke with the big 3 auto dealers. We are going to give a 1-month exemption on any autos coming through USMCA. Reciprocal tariffs will still go into effect on April 2nd, but at the request of the companies associated with USMCA, the president is giving them an exemption for 1 month so they are not at an economic disadvantage. So the 3 companies that he spoke to are Stellantis, Ford, and General Motors. They requested the call, they made the ask, and the president is happy to do it. It's a 1-month exemption.
And the president just posted on social media that he had spoken with Prime Minister Trudeau. He says he's not satisfied with what the Prime Minister has said when it comes to fentanyl, but less than 1%, as you know, less than 1% of the fentanyl seized.
Oh, that's shocking. Things did not go well on the phone call. How much do you want to bet Trudeau is going to come out and say, we had a very enlightening call, very great things were talked about, very educational, a lot of bullshit, a lot of lies are going to come out of Trudeau's mouth in the next 24 hours.
Last year was in the northern border. What else does Canada need to do?
Well, the president did just put out a statement on his call with the governor, Justin Trudeau, as he calls him, of Canada. And he said that he was not pleased, as you said. He said it's not good enough. He told Prime Minister Justin Trudeau that directly. The call ended in a somewhat friendly manner, as the president said, but he's not going to stop standing up for the American people. And to answer your question directly when it comes to fentanyl, for the last 4 years, unfortunately, our neighbors to the north and the south, Canada and Mexico respectively, have allowed America to be a dumping ground, not just for illegal aliens, but for illegal, poisonous, deadly fentanyl, which is now the #1 killer of young people in this country aged 18 to 34. Through the northern border in Canada, in last fiscal year alone, there was enough fentanyl seized to kill 4.8 billion people. And that number is up 2,050% from 2023, the year before. So there's been more than a 2,000% increase in illegal fentanyl seizure at the northern border. Why? Because Canada is allowing that fentanyl to come to the United States. The president sees these numbers. He thinks about the lives that are lost. And everybody in this room, I'm sure, everybody watching at home, everybody across the country knows someone in our lives who has been killed at the hands of this deadly poison. There needs to be repercussions for that. The president feels very strongly about it.
Caroline, respectfully, it's just 43 pounds that were found last year. That's less than a carry-on suitcase. Is that a lot of fentanyl compared to, say, Mexico, where the vast majority of the fentanyl is brought in through Mexico, not Canada? So what else does Canada need to do?
Well, I just told you, last year alone, there was a 2,000% increase in illegal fentanyl. You're asking me for what the president's justification is for these tariffs.
It's only 43 pounds. Is that what the reporter keeps saying? That's enough to do quite a bit of damage. It doesn't take a lot of that specific thing to, you know what I'm getting at here. I'm trying to stay TOS friendly. This drug is so serious. Yes, a vast majority of it, mostly all of it, is coming from Mexico. But even 43 pounds, it's only 43 pounds of the most dangerous drug in the entire world. What? What?
It's not up to you. You're not the president, Gabe. And frankly, I think it's a little bit disrespectful to the families in this country who have lost loved ones at the hands of this deadly poison. If you talk to them, and this president has, they are grateful that they finally have a president who is standing up to both Canada and Mexico, and most importantly, to China as well. The president added an additional 10% tariff on China because this deadly poison is being produced in that country. It's being distributed through our neighbors, and there needs to be consequences for that, period. Peter.
Thank you, Caroline. If the U.S. has a longstanding policy that we do not negotiate with terrorists, then why is the U.S. now negotiating directly and for the first time ever with Hamas?
Well, when it comes to the negotiations that you're referring to, first of all, the special envoy who's engaged in those negotiations does have the authority to talk to anyone. Israel was consulted on this matter. And look, dialogue and talking to people around the world to do what's in the best interest of the American people is something that the president has proven is what he believes is good faith effort to do what's right for the American people.
Is it just about the hostages, or are they also talking about the president's plan to take over Gaza?
These are ongoing talks and discussions. I am not going to detail them here. There are American lives at stake. I would defer you to the Department of State for further details, but I'm not going to get into those talks here at this podium.
We know that some officials here were miffed that Zelensky showed up last week without a suit for his meeting in the Oval Office, but Elon Musk never wears a suit in
He
there.
did last night.
So what is the dress code?
Well, Elon Musk wore a suit last night. I'm sure you saw it.
Was he spooked by the Zelensky getting kicked out?
No, I don't think so. I'm just pointing out that he did wear a suit last night, and I think the president liked that very much, and he looked great. Speaking of the president, he just passed me a note while I'm standing here. He wanted me to hold this up. This is the poll that I cited, the CBS YouGov poll that shows that 76% of those who watched the president's speech last night approved of his speech. And
it was a pretty damn good speech.
So it goes to my earlier point that I made in my monologue about how incredibly sad it is that we have a modern-day Democrat Party who is so severely out of touch with the American public. This is a great poll. The ultimate poll, though, came on November 5th when the president won by an overwhelming margin that he spoke about last night. Democrats weren't happy to hear that either. Ouija.
Thank you, Caroline. Back on tariffs, last night President Trump said there will be a little disturbance, but we're okay with that. Can you put a dollar figure amount on how much the average American family should expect to pay as this disturbance? And why should Americans be okay with that when so many are already struggling to pay the bills?
Well, first of all, last night, the president told the truth. And he was realistic, and he level set with the American people. And I think, frankly, it's very refreshing, and everybody in this room should be very grateful that we have a president who tells the truth about the reality of the economic situation that we are in, unlike the previous president who lied to everybody's faces, saying inflation was transitory, saying it was under control, saying that the border was secure, when none of that was true. So the president is being frank and honest, and the American people elected this president to have monumental reform and change, including rebuilding our manufacturing base in this country, standing up to foreign nations who have been ripping off our country for decades. And that requires a little bit of disruption. That requires a lot of effort and work that this president is focused on doing. With that said, as the president said last night, his administration is wholeheartedly committed, of course, to ending the inflation nightmare caused by the Biden administration. Look at the deregulation efforts. Look at the president's push last night in his speech for Congress to pass tax cuts, to end taxes on Social Security and overtime pay for hardworking Americans, end taxes on tips. We need Congress to get that done because that's going to put more money back into the pockets of the American people. And I didn't even mention energy. Look at the president's approach and focus on unleashing the might of our energy industry. We know that's the #1 driver of inflation. He's been slashing back a lot of the burdensome regulation from the previous administration to unleash our energy industry here at home, which will drive down costs. He said he is committed to making America affordable again. He did it in his first term, and Americans can trust him to do it again.
President Trump has made clear, Caroline, that he loves tariffs, but the stock market does not. How does he factor that into his decision making?
Well, the president does love tariffs. He said it's one of his favorite words in the English dictionary, and he believes in tariffs because they'll ultimately make America rich again. They're going to raise revenue. They're going to help us pay down our debt. Most importantly, they're going to bring American jobs here back home. So I think for folks on Wall Street who may be concerned, look at what this president did for you in his first term. Wall Street boomed. Stock.
Okay, take a look at this. Just the bottom part here is the main thing. Obviously they had the conversation and Trump said it's not good enough, ended in a somewhat friendly manner. He was unable, this is the part, he was unable to tell me when the Canadian election is taking place, which made me curious, like, what's going on here? I then realized he is trying to use this issue to stay in power. Good luck, Justin. Yeah. This is what I was kind of talking about earlier. The liberals are gaslighting hard, and the mainstream media is locking step with them. And a lot of the things that are coming out right now, it's a lot of, orange man bad, this, that, and the fourth. But Trudeau has been in power for 10 years. He is the leader of our country. The reason we are in this situation is because of him. Really, no other way to look at it. Is what Trump doing good by any means? No, not really. It's going to have effects on both sides. And if it escalates further, I mean, Doug Ford has threatened to turn off the fucking power in places like New York, Minnesota, Buffalo, etc. So things could really get bad if this escalates further. Apparently we power a lot of at least the northern side of the US. So places like Minnesota are going to get shafted if this continues, which I found quite interesting, to be honest. I didn't think we had that much play in terms of power. But for those states specifically, not looking too good if this escalates further. All right, let's get back to the video.
Stock market boomed. The president expects that to happen again, but most importantly, Main Street is going to boom, and that's why the president has this whole of government economic approach, which includes tax cuts, tariffs, regulation cuts, and an energy industry that will bring down costs for American consumers. Sure, Monica.
Thank you, Caroline. You mentioned not one Democrat senator voted to protect women's sports from males. Not one Democrat congressman or congresswoman stood to applaud or support protecting.
Okay, so I'm going to skip ahead to at least the live. I want to hear if they talk about anything tariff-wise. If not, we can skip the rest of this.
Women's space, and we're competing.
The message that our fellow females at men and women's sports in that
yesterday that they're ready for any kind of war with the U.S. Because of these tariffs that have been placed on them.
Here we go.
A Chinese spokesperson also said that the tariffs would not lead to a resolution of U.S. concerns about fentanyl originating in China. Can you speak to how the administration is planning on responding to that?
Well, I think Secretary Hegseth has responded to that this morning. He said that America will always be prepared to defend itself, especially under the leadership of this president in the Oval Office. And that certainly remains true. Again, when it comes to tariffs, the president has been very tough on China, not just now with 20% and more with the reciprocal tariffs that will hit on April 2nd. But look at what he did in his first term. There were billions of dollars worth of tariffs that he implemented on China. And it's quite telling that the previous administration did not rescind those tariffs because they realized the value that they had in not only deterring China, but also raising revenue here in the United States. Rachel.
Thanks, Caroline. Just a quick follow-up, two quick follow-ups on tariffs. The president mentioned a little disturbance during his remarks yesterday. The CEO of Target says that consumers will likely see prices go up on everything from strawberries to bananas to avocados. How long should Americans expect to pay higher prices? Are we talking a week, a couple of days, a few months?
Again, I don't have a crystal ball, but what I can assure the American people is that this president and this administration is doing everything they can. And I would remind you and everybody else in this room that it's because of the previous administration's economic policies that Americans were left with record high inflation. Inflation throughout Joe Biden's entire 48 months in office was at or above 3%. It hit record highs, as you know. And there's a whole list of what the Biden economic disaster this president was left to clean up. It's been a month, but he's working hard every single day to do just that.
One quick follow-up on the carve-out. Sorry to cut you off there. The U.S. imported $43 million worth of eggs from Canada. I know you mentioned some of the exemptions when it comes to automakers. Will there be any other carve-outs, including for eggs? We know prices are soaring for Americans.
The president is open to hearing about additional exemptions. He always has open dialogue, and he'll always do, what's right, what he believes is right for the American people. But again, as for the egg crisis in this country, the president is wholeheartedly committed to ensuring we're increasing our egg supply, and we're also bringing down cost. And Secretary Rollins has been all over this issue. She comes from an agricultural background and family. That's why she's leading that very important department. She wrote an amazing op-ed in the Wall Street Journal. She's been all over the media talking about her plan. She has a real plan. The president endorses it. And he even, gave her an off-the-prompter shout-out last night to say, Brooke, I'm counting on you. It's an important issue. And this White House is working with Secretary of Agriculture every single day to address this issue. Sure. Jordan.
Thanks, Caroline. So, what does it say that the Democrats, while they couldn't stand for Americans?
Okay, we will skip to live to see if they're talking about anything tariff-wise, and if not, we will move on to the last thing I have here, which it's going to be a funny one.
The United States of America, and the president will continue to ensure that the Chinese government, the CCP, cannot be infiltrated in the Western Hemisphere, and certainly not in the Panama Canal, which is a very important place for our country.
Okay, I'm actually going to go back to the beginning of that question.
An update security.
And that mineral.
Sure.
The president read parts of the letter that he received last night from President Zelensky. Can you give us a sense of when President Trump now plans to sign that minerals deal after receiving that letter?
Those talks are happening as we speak. I just saw the National Security Advisor. He's working very hard on it. I believe he was going into the Oval Office to give the president an update on where this stands. But again, the president is committed to a peace deal. He wants to see this war end. And I think that President Zelensky's message, which he also shared on X as well, is a positive sign in the right direction.
The president also said that the United States was reclaiming the Panama Canal. The president of Panama this morning, or at some point today, said that President Trump was lying. Wanted to get your response to that, and also curious if the president had a reason for not specifically mentioning BlackRock last night when he was praising the company that is buying canals or ports around the Panama Canal.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Panama has seen what's going on with their own canal, but as you just mentioned, BlackRock is now interested in investing and taking over the two ends of the port, which is very important because the president was very vocal several weeks ago about the need to ensure that China is not controlling the Panama Canal. This is a very important place for the United States of America. We also saw that the Panama Canal lifted fees on our U.S. naval ships that are going in and out of the canal.
All right, that is that. We're going to get on to the last thing here. Everybody's absolute favorite person right now, Justin Trudeau. He had a little response yesterday, late yesterday, on the tariffs that Trump has implemented. Before we get into this, I just want everybody to take a solid look at Melanie Joly and what she is wearing. Now, if you give me a few seconds here, I search up picture. That'll probably work fine. Let's see here. We'll just slide this one down. Oh, yeah, isn't that kind of familiar looking? All right.
So today, the United States launched a trade war against Canada. Their closest partner and ally, the closest friend. At the same time,
oh my God, they can't even get the audio right.
They're talking about working positively with Russia, appeasing Vladimir Putin, a lying, murderous dictator. Make that make sense. Canadians are reasonable, and we are polite, but we will not back down from a fight. Not when our country...
Oh my God, that was poetic.
...and the well-being of everyone in it is at stake. At the moment, the U.S. tariffs came into effect in the early hours of this morning, and so did the Canadian response. Canada will be implementing 25% tariffs against $155 billion.
Canada will send $10 billion more to Ukraine in the response of Trump's tariffs.
$1 billion worth of American goods, starting with tariffs on $30 billion worth of goods immediately, and tariffs on the remaining $125 billion of American products in 21 days' time. Encore aujourd'hui, on se voit forcé d'imposer des droits américains. Un jour, by filing we will also be challenging these illegal actions by filing dispute resolution claims at the World Trade Organization and through the USMCA. But in the meantime,
we can't handle it ourselves, so we're going to have to go to an organization that has significant power over us, most likely, and we'll go from there. Okay, thank you very much.
Our tariffs will remain in place until the U.S. tariffs are withdrawn, and not a moment sooner. And should these tariffs not cease, we are in active and ongoing discussions with provinces and territories to pursue several non-tariff measures. Measures which will demonstrate that there are no winners in a trade war. Now, just like I did a month ago, I want to speak first directly to the American people. We don't want this. We want to work with you as a friend and ally. And we don't want to see you hurt either. But your government has chosen to do this to you. As of this morning, markets are down, and inflation is set to rise dramatically all across your country. Your government has chosen to put American jobs at risk at the thousands of workplaces that succeed because of...
No, this is all because of you, Justin. This is all because of you, buddy. You guys have had a lot of time to think of any sort of strategy or way to combat this, or simply, I don't know, just going and meeting with Trump in person, having a conversation with him. You've had a lot of time to think about this. It's not like he, I don't know, ran on it for the past 2+ years Whenever he started campaigning, it's not like he continuously said the main thing he was going to do was put America first and do it by, I don't know, any means necessary. It's insane. The gaslighting, the manipulation that this man pushes out there. It's time. It is time for him to go away. We need an election and we need it now. And the simple fact is, this guy, quote unquote, resigned. He resigned. He said he was resigning. He said he was done. They don't even believe in him as a leader anymore. They just don't. Their own party is crumbling and collapsing from the inside out. They're imploding. And this man is just an absolute goofball who has played his 52 deck of cards, and it's over. He has nothing else to play. Money's dried up. The deck is dried up. Melanie Jolie is looking at him right now like, you're an absolute fucking idiot. Why am I standing behind you? Looking like funny mustache man's best friend. Our government is insane.
Materials from Canada, or because of consumers in Canada, or both. They've chosen to raise costs for American consumers on everyday essential items like groceries and gas, on major purchases like cars and homes, and everything in between. They've chosen to harm American national security, impeding access to the abundant critical minerals, energy, building materials, and fertilizers that we have and that the United States needs to grow and prosper. They've chosen to launch a trade war that will, first and foremost, harm American families. They've chosen to sabotage their own agenda that was supposed to usher in a new golden age for the United States. And they've chosen to undermine the incredible work we've done together to tackle the scourge that is fentanyl, a drug that must be wiped from the face of the earth. So on that point, let me be crystal clear. There is absolutely no justification or need whatsoever for these.
Whatsoever, he says. I can't take him serious. There's not a single thing this guy could say that I'm like, he's back, right? Like, no, he's not. There's nothing he can do. It's just go, just leave, please. Step aside. Trump literally asked, when is the election happening? When is somebody with an actual brain gonna get into power here?
Tariffs today. Now, the legal pretext your government is using to bring in these tariffs is that Canada is apparently unwilling to help in the fight against illegal fentanyl. Well, that is totally false. Let's look at the facts. Our border is already safe and secure. Far less than 1% of fentanyl flows and less than 1% of illegal crossings into the United States comes from Canada. But we acted because we know we can always do better. We responded to concerns, including from the President, by implementing an ambitious $1.3 billion border plan. A border plan that includes generational investments in new AI and imaging tools to stop the flow of fentanyl in its tracks, stronger coordination and information sharing with American agencies, along with the deployment of drones, helicopters, and additional personnel to keep our border secure. Now, a month ago, as part of an agreement with the United States that paused the tariffs, we made further commitments. We appointed Kevin Brosseau as our fentanyl czar, a man who dedicated his multi-decade career in law enforcement to combating organized crime networks and drug trafficking. We designated 7 drug cartels, sick, evil groups who cynically profit off the pain and suffering of people on both sides of the border, as the terrorist organizations that they are. And just yesterday, we launched a new joint operations partnership supported by a $200 million investment between Canada's security and law enforcement agencies, a partnership that will enhance the coordination of information and intelligence in order to thwart criminal gangs involved in the illegal fentanyl trade. And critically, our actions are working. As the U.S. Customs and Border Protection just acknowledged, there was a 97% drop in fentanyl seizures from January compared to December, to a near zero low of less than half an ounce seized in January, even with all the further enforcements and actions we've taken at the borders. In sum, we stepped up. We engaged closely and constructively with the President and his administration. We did everything we promised. We stuck to our word. And we did it because we believe in working together to protect our citizens. Now I want to speak directly to one specific American, Donald. In the over 8 years you and I have worked together, we've done big things. We signed a historic deal that has created record jobs and growth in both of our countries. We've done big things together on the world stage, as Canada and the US have done together for decades, for generations. And now we should be working together to ensure even greater prosperity for North Americans in a very uncertain and challenging world. Now, it's not in my habit to agree with the Wall Street Journal, but Donald, they point out that even though you're a very smart guy, this is a very dumb thing to do.
And that's coming from a really dumb person.
We two friends fighting is exactly what our opponents around the world want to see. And now, to my fellow Canadians, I won't sugarcoat it. This is going to be tough, even though we're all going to pull together, because that's what we do. We will use every tool at our disposal so Canadian workers and businesses can weather this storm. From expanding EI benefits and making them more flexible to providing direct supports to businesses, we will be there as needed to help. But Canada, make no mistake, no matter how long this lasts, no matter what the cost, the federal government and other orders of government will be there for you. We will defend Canadian jobs. We will take measures to prevent predatory behavior that threatens Canadian companies because of the impacts of this trade war, leaving them open to takeovers. We will relentlessly fight to protect our economy. We will stand up for Canadians every single second of every single day, because this country is worth fighting for.
Well, I guess that's what he has done for the past 10 years, right? Standing up for Canadians while continuing to send our tax dollars over to any country at this point other than ours. That's just fantastic. Great words from the very wise Trudeau. I don't see much of anything else to cover today, and quite frankly, I'm tired of listening to this reject speak. So I'm going to take one more quick look here. I did see a bunch of videos, or not a bunch, but a couple of videos of the LCBO taking American booze off the shelves for a second time. I thought that was pretty stupid. You already paid for the stuff. Why not sell it and at least make the money? I don't know, but the people who lined up, I saw a couple of videos, there were some insane lines in big cities. People trying to get their hands on some American alcohol before it was all gone. I'm sure people out there have a way of getting it. I don't know how you would. But yeah, I think that is going to do it for today's stream or show or whatever you want to call it. Thank you all for joining. Have a fantastic rest of your day or night, depending on where you are coming from. Adios.